Hi, everyone. Today, I want to talk about the risk of letting your energy flow freely. And if you follow me at all, if you know my work, you know that one of the things that I really speak to that I think is of utmost importance in being a soul in this human body on this earth is to really be who we are meant to be, who the truth let the truth of who we are flow freely. And just like any other being in nature that stands and grows in its energy, a tree, a flower, whatever it might be, that just feels free to be exactly what it is, that it is doing what it came here to do. It is living its purpose by being the energy that it is and nothing else. And when we can do that as a human, I believe that we are being a true gift to this world, the gift that we came here to be, the unique, radiant energy that only each one of us can hold for ourselves. And so when we're talking about working with the chakras, chakra medicine, when we are talking about doing this like healing journey, bringing consciousness to our energy so that we can more harmoniously flow freely with our energy, that's what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to standing in the fullness of who we are and letting that truth that is at our core, our deepest truth, be fully felt, fully expressed. And recently, I make posts about this all the time, right, in social media, but one of the posts that I made recently, I was discussing this recent conversation I had with a man that I was volunteering with. And without going into too much detail about it, you can go watch the video if you want. Essentially, something I said made him kind of um express that it surprised him that he didn't expect that from a lady. And there was this kind of like request from him to for me to like stay in my box. It was a subtle request, it wasn't overt. The conversation wasn't a very big deal, but it was just noted by me that like in this free flow of energy that I have worked to feel comfortable expressing, just living from letting myself just be who I am, speak freely and clearly from my truth, that it made him uncomfortable. And so I talk about that in that video. And then I had a response from a client, and I really appreciated her response because it was, actually a conversation that I had kind of had in my head before I posted the video. And she was curious, what about the concern. She appreciated the video, but she was like, "What about if there's, like, offense that you're bringing? What about if you're harming another with your truth, with that free flow of energy?" And I had considered that before I posted the video because I thought to myself, am I could this be misconstrued and kind of held in a different way than I am intending? And that's a risk, right? That's always a risk in something that we post. And I trust that if somebody has that question, they'll bring it up. And she did. This client of mine did. So I thought this is worthy of a bigger conversation because I think sometimes we question whether or not we should express our truth because what would it mean for another? And so there's a really simple way to go about looking at this so that we can kind of test: is this something that should be said? Is it something that I shouldn't say? Is this truth something that can be expressed and be part of like the gift that I am here to be and the true expression of my core energy? Or is it is there a kind of a misguided purpose as to why I'm saying this? And so the concern, it's really like discerning, right? We are discerning, is my truth harming others, or is it sharing the whole of my energy in an honest and in a fluid way? And the true difference can really be found in where the judgment lies, if judgment's there. And so we can ask ourselves these three questions that help us to discern if judgment is part of the story. Because if judgment is part of the story, it's going to give us a really clear indicator as to if this is true energy being expressed from me, from my truth, from the core of who I am. In which case, like maybe it's a tree grows in its fullness of energy and it doesn't question itself to say, is the way I'm growing harming another, right? But if the truth I think I'm expressing that isn't actually the core of the truth of my energy, if it's maybe a distortion of it, if it's something that is like a wounded part of me, then it might come out and be harmful. And so I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, with this man, I was really just expressing my truth, and I wasn't holding him in judgment. I wasn't holding myself in judgment. I was expressing my truth. And it wasn't, as far as I knew, it wasn't harmful. There was nothing that I would consider to be harmful. And I didn't really need to think about that though, because I was just letting my energy flow freely. However, when I thought about whether or not I should post this, I was thinking, what if, like, I had just watched on the 4th of July, these white supremacists who were marching through DC and were riding on public transportation, and the discomfort. There were multiple pictures of them riding with people of color, and I was just feeling the discomfort that that would have created, and how what if somebody thought to themselves, "Oh, I'm just expressing my truth, and so it doesn't matter if I'm making that person uncomfortable." And what's the difference between that and me expressing my truth with this man, in this conversation I was having about moles? And it comes down to judgment. How am I moving my life force energy from my root into my sacral? And am I stopping that life force energy with judgment? Because that's what happens in the sacral when we are holding another or ourselves in judgment. And so if you take those two scenarios, in the mole example, the man is making a judgment actually of me. I was expressing my truth. I wasn't judging myself, judging whether or not I should express that truth. And there was certainly no judgment on him. He had asked me a question, but he judged me. He was holding me in judgment. So the life force was actually being altered in him by saying, "Oh, I don't think that's how a lady should speak." And with the white supremacists, they are holding another in judgment, holding themselves in a place of hierarchy, um, and asking another, uh, kind of like in a way saying this other person's life force should be suppressed, should be something other than their own. And so they're holding another in judgment. They are then actively, suppressing their own life force energy through this expression of what they might call truth. But it isn't actually a truth because it's actually a judgment. And so it is, rather than that truth flowing freely through them, that what they're calling truth is actually a suppression of their own energy, and it's held in a place of distortion in their root. So it's their root trying to come out, trying to be expressed, but it's actually being expressed through this kind of distorted lens. That's a judgment. That's making the life force energy more about keeping themselves safe, locked up in their root, than it is about letting their truth be shared with who they are and expressed with the world. It's one, the energy flows up and through them, clear expression through the channel of the throat. And the other, it's locked up in the root and it's energy trying to move, trying to get out. They're alive, right? The energy is going to move, but it is not moving through a clear flow of energy through their channels, the free flow through the whole of their being in the way a tree would have it flow through them. It is being expressed in a distorted way and called a truth. And so the three kind of questions I would ask if I was trying to discern the difference between the two and where the judgment lies is, am I judging and enforcing my truth on another? Right? In the mole example, the man was was like putting his truth on me. That's not what a woman should speak about, right? Um, the in the white supremacist example, this is, I am higher than you, I'm better than you, whatever it is their thinking is. And so I am placing that truth on you. I am changing the flow of energy within another because of my own. I'm asking for that flow of energy to be changed in another based on my own distortion of energy within self. So am I judging and forcing my truth on another? Second question, is someone else holding judgment against me? Right? So similar thing, like if I am, that man is judging me, um and so do I need to change my life force energy because of that or not, right? So that a lot of people, a lot of women especially, do alter their flow of energy because they don't want to make others around them uncomfortable. And that really then shifts the energy up out of their own roots into, they're not necessarily judging themselves, but they're more of their energies in their heart. They're being more caring about another's comfort rather than their own flow of energy. And that then changes the way the heart energy flows. It also will impact the throat. It will impact the thyroid. So I'm not going to go too far into that because I could go off on a whole tangent. Maybe I will for another another chat. But I want to get to the third question to ask yourself is, am I judging myself and therefore withholding my energy? So that lends itself to that last thing I just pointed out, which is, am I am I am I taking am I judging whether or not I should say something and therefore not allowing the freedom of my energy to flow? Right? If I was in that conversation and I had said to myself, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't talk about this though because I wonder if he's going to be uncomfortable if I talk about dog poop." Right? Like that would be me altering my life force energy to make another more comfortable. And I would be then not holding myself in judgment, holding my own truth in judgment, altering the flow of energy, especially through my sacral. And so each of these questions helps us to define where the judgment lies. And the judgment is that key force that shuts down the flow of energy. So judgment is the Anna Dea Judith, she calls it the mm, I forget which word she uses, but the enemy essentially. It's the enemy of the sacral chakra. So judgment creates polarity. And if you think of, you have this root force energy that's coming up, right? And then the sacral waters through the pelvic bowl move and they're flowing, and they flow based on leaning into sharing your truth, leaning into what you desire, leaning into your pleasures. That makes it flow, and then you can take action and express from there, right? And so that is moving, that's flowing kind of like a windmill, propelling, creating energy, right? And when the judgment happens, there's this polarity. Judgment holds things as black or white, this or that. And so it takes that flow of energy and it stops it, slows it, and it makes the energy come back down into the root. Most judgment is held because of something in the root that is saying, if that happens or if that doesn't happen, I am not safe. it comes down to safety. I am not worthy, right? Like my existence is in question and or is being tampered with, right? So that is that is why we look to judgment to know, is it I am I judging myself? Am I judging another? That's how I know if, if my free flow of energy is part of my truth or not. Um, so we can really explore where we sit with any issue, whether we are freely flowing in a thoughtful, open, fluid way, like that tree standing tall, swaying in the wind with other trees around it, without trying to shift according to the experience of the other trees. It just remains rooted into itself, a being among others. Or if we are judging another, or if we're judging ourselves. And either way, we are slowing the sacral flow. We are um, in our own self and coming back down into the root. And so we need to ask ourselves, when we notice judgment, what am I judging in myself? What is making me feel unsafe in this situation? Why do I need that person to act other than the way that they are? What is it about me that needs that? And so the risk, I began this whole exploration with the risk. What is the risk of letting your energy freely flow? And the risk is that you have to surrender to the life that happens around you when you do it, right? Like, you have to hold yourself responsible to your free flow of energy, to if it's judgment or truth, and then the risk is in letting life unfold, letting that man sit in his discomfort because I brought up dog poop as a woman. And and surrendering to that, to say like, okay, yeah, that made you uncomfortable, and if he wanted to have a deeper conversation about it, if I wanted to have we didn't have a deeper conversation about it because I didn't feel like that needed to happen for myself. And I guess, I don't think he did either. But if there could, like there is maybe room then to have conversation, and that really opens up the question of how do we flow with another. And this often gets brought up in the work that I do, because when I am learning to let my energy flow freely, it is asking the others around me to do the same. And and in relationships, in people that we live closely with, uh, you know, whether it be our intimate partnership, our children, our parents, our siblings, our friendships, those can, we can go, okay, I'm letting my energy flow freely, but what now happens to the person? Um, how do I do that with another? How do I let myself flow freely and engage in the life around me and all these other flows of energy, right? And that's something that comes up a lot, because as people start to flow more freely, things start to recombobulate around them. The energies of the people they engage with in life begin to shift, begin to have other things that they have to explore for themselves, based on somebody holding themselves to a greater truth. And so that's something that I will explore next week, because I don't want to take up too much time in one session. But that is, I think, a really important conversation too, because it's something that we have to prepare ourselves for a little bit. We have to know that if I am shifting my flow of energy, then the situations in my life, the people in my life that have come into connection with me, and in and flowed with me in the way I flow with myself, there's almost this like magnetism that happens based on how my energy is flowing. And if I shift that, it's going to shift the nature of the flow with life around me. And and so how can we hold that in a way that can work most optimally for each of our own higher selves, for the higher selves around us, and and begin to, how can we perceive of flowing freely, not just within ourselves but with others. So that will be what I explore next week. And this Friday in my member section, I'm going to offer a practice where you can really to explore that judgment within the self and to just feel into how your sacral chakra is flowing and to really begin to perceive in through the mind's eye um, kind of like what that looks like, what that feels like, how you can explore that for yourself. So we'll have a practice for that on Friday. Stay tuned if you're a member, and if you're not, consider even just joining for a month and checking it out. Um, and then let me know if you have any questions around this, and I'll speak to it next week in the live when I go into deeper conversation around what it means to flow with another. And I really just want to, I guess, end by saying that the whole, you know, it is I see it as utmost importance to to let our energy flow freely, to be and live and radiate the energy from each of our own authentic selves, the reason we came into this body, the reason we are here on earth. And that truth wants to be expressed, just like the truth of the the seed that the tree originally was wanted to be expressed in the way the tree grew or the flower grew, right? We want to be expressed in our most true way, and that is what the world needs. The world needs each of us expressed in that free flow of truth, and to know our truth and to let it radiate from us. And when we can flow freely from that place of truth, we become more alive. We become more fully expressed. And in that expression of energy, that is how we live in each moment more purposefully, more alive, without some misguided notion of what purpose means in terms of like doing or productivity, right? It's just letting our energy flow freely in who we are and standing in the truth of that, taking responsibility for it, for our own self, but not feeling the need to take responsibility for others. It's for ourselves, and to trust in that. So, and that becomes really important, not just for the sacral chakra, but also for our throat chakra. The throat, if you know the jaw, the hips, really connected, right? The pelvic, the sacral chakra, the throat chakra, really connected. And so, the more that we can release that judgment, the more clear our expression becomes, not just through our voice, but our expression is from the throat chakra, whether it be the word, the words that we speak, or whether it be the clothing that we wear, the way we decorate our home. That's all throat chakra. It is expression, and the more true it becomes, the more healthy our throat can be. And the throat, like I said earlier, is really important for a lot of women. And I hear so many women talk about thyroid, and that is throat. So and it also is our 12th chakra, the chakra of you, of being fully expressed and letting your field hold that radiance that is you. So I will stop there. Thank you so much for being part of this. And please let me know if any questions come up. If you, between now and then, drop them in chat, and I will make sure to bring it in for next week. All right. Take care.